Welcome to the Jig Is Up. I'm Brennan, the paralyzed woodworker, aka the toughest man to sit to piss. This is my co-host Andy. Today on the Jig Is Up, we're talking about the 5 biggest woodworking lies that piss me off the most.
I have a list too, but it's mostly my neighbor Gary. Gary's.
All right, Andy, let's get on to number 1. All right, now I know I'm gonna probably get a lot of pushback on this one, but hear me out. This is the one I've actually thought about the most.
The locker room shower!
Shut the f
yourself,
up, Bauer.
Bauer.
The whole value proposition of pocket hole screws is speed and simplicity. You don't have to learn anything complicated. You just drill the holes, drive the screws, and you're done. That's the whole pitch. Here's what actually happens. You clamp 2 pieces together. The joint tries to separate as you're driving the screw. You're fighting it the whole time. You drive the screw and it strips.
Screwing and stripping. I thought this was a woodworking show, not a show about Bauer's mom.
Or the whole side of the board blows out and it looks terrible. Or the piece shifts at the last second and now your hole's off. And when you try to correct it, your bit wants to slide right back into the wrong hole.
Now you know what your wife feels like.
It's not simple, it's a wrestling match.
If I wanted to wrestle I'd go to your family reunion.
Mandy? Independent testing by Matthias Wandel, a woodworker who actually built a screw jack to test his joints, found that mortise and tenon joints were twice as strong as pocket hole joints in realistic furniture loading. Pocket holes started visibly opening up at around 50 pounds of force, with final failure around 100 pounds. Mortise and tenon joints held until sudden failure at over 200 pounds. When a pocket hole screw fails, it usually rips out all the surrounding wood, making it virtually unrepairable.
Like your periodontal disease.
When a mortise and tenon joint fails, you can usually still repair it with some fresh glue and clamp. And since screws don't really allow your wood to move with the seasons, eventually it is going to fail.
Just like your kidneys.
Jesus Christ, Andy. That's f***ed up, dude.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Joinery isn't that hard to learn. Once you have a system for it, it's actually pretty simple and quick. A well-fit mortise and tenon joint, it goes together like it has a home. It self-registers. It wants to be square.
Like you two.
You're a piece of
I'm
Bauer.
gonna come over there and unplug you.
The difference between fighting a pocket hole assembly and sliding a mortise and tenon frame together is a difference between wrestling furniture into existence and building it. One of them feels like woodworking, the other one feels like it's Christmas morning and you have a pile of instructions and toys to put together. That's my problem with it. It makes it feel like an IKEA furniture.
You use traditional joinery so your customers can throw it straight into the fire pit.
That's actually pretty good. I'm not saying don't ever use pocket hole screws. There's definitely a time and a place to use pocket hole screws where traditional joinery isn't going to make much sense. So don't think I'm on pocket hole screws completely. All I'm saying is I think people get too comfortable using pocket hole screws. I think people should widen their horizon and learn everything they possibly can about woodworking, not just stick to pocket hole screws. That's all I'm saying. Go into any woodworking forum, comment section, any subreddit, and tell them you're thinking of building furniture using construction lumber. Go ahead, I'll wait. You'll get roasted like a dry condom. Hardwood snobs are gonna come out of the woodworks. Furniture's only built with hardwood. Walnut, quarter sawn white oak, S2S cherry at $12 a board foot.
Old people will pay anything for hardwood. Look at the price of Cialis.
Now look, I love a beautiful hardwood. But the idea that you need it to build fine furniture, I don't agree with.
Like an alphabet of
God, Andy. Here's what's actually true. Construction grade spruce, pine, fir, it's all been used to build structures that have been standing for centuries. barns, timber frames, houses. So why can't we build tables and chairs from it? A cabinet maker named Steve Maxwell has been building cabinets out of framing lumber since 1999. He says even experienced woodworkers are surprised when he tells them you can use framing lumber for cabinets, chairs, and other furniture. Selected carefully and worked with patience, the results speak for themselves.
Yours say don't look too close.
I think everything on my channel so far has been built out of construction lumber. I just don't have the money for hardwood. And some of these actually don't look too bad. The real objection, the legitimate one, is that framing lumber comes out of the yard at about 18 to 20%, and wood used for furniture needs to be dried to about 6 to 8%. That's a real difference, and it does matter. But the answer is simple. Just let it acclimate. Stack it, sticker it, and put it in your shop for a couple weeks. That's the whole secret.
Pine plus time is the poor man's oak.
That's right, Andy. Time plus pine is the poor man's oak. The wood isn't what makes something heirloom quality. The joinery is what makes it heirloom quality. I'll take mortise and tenon pine furniture over screwed together figured walnut any day.
That's because you have no choice. You're more broke than your spine.
Because traditional joinery is going to allow the wood to breathe and move with the seasons. And that's the thing that allows furniture to survive generations. Screwed together pieces don't last generations. Traditional Amish joinery does. But pocket hole screws is still going to beat the particle board furniture that's being passed off nowadays. This one isn't wrong exactly, it's just wildly incomplete.
Like your smile.
You, Andy. The better question is, why are you measuring at all? Professional woodworkers, the ones who make a living at this, they don't live and die by a tape measure.
It's usually boredom.
They use story sticks. They use reference pieces. They use stop blocks.
They use tampons. Haha, only kidding.
They hold one board against another and they scribe it directly. For the one-person shop, direct measurement is superior in almost every way. It's simpler, it's more consistent, and it sidesteps the most common errors in any shop.
Your errors don't come from a tape measure. They come from a bong, Brennan.
The tape measure introduces a step where error can live. Every time you translate a number from wood to ruler to brain to pencil to wood again, you create an opportunity to be wrong. Eliminate the translation and you eliminate the error. The smartest thing you can do as a woodworker is build jigs that remove most of the measurement from the process. Here's my dado jig. It's a block of wood with a threaded insert and a bolt and a couple nuts on it. This allows me to get perfect dados and half flaps first try without measuring and marking or guessing and sneaking up on the fit. I actually have a video on this on my page. I think it's like 2 minutes long, but you probably only need to watch like 20 seconds of it. The lesson here isn't measure more carefully, it's build more systems and measure way less.
If you mess it up, just call it rustic.
Exactly.
And lie number 5, woodworking is profitable.
Thank you for watching The Jig Is Up. Don't forget to watch last week's episode, Did Festal Ruin Woodworking? And don't forget to subscribe so I know if I should keep doing this.